Okay, it's looking like we have mostly everyone here. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. This is such an amazing turnout. It's the biggest one we've had so far for our community information session, and I think that's saying a lot to what people want to hear from Kirsten. So let's hop into this. I'm excited. Next slide, please, Kirsten.
I make sure you guys, it's changing for you, right?
Yeah, looks good on my end.
Amazing.
Awesome. All right. Well, Tanse, and welcome everyone. This is our community information session on Matriarchs of the Métis Nation. We're joined today by Kirsten. And a little bit about Kirsten. Kirsten's Métis roots run deep in Lac Saint Anne. And as an avid harvester and outdoors woman, she will be talking about the roles Métis women play in our history, starting with the first women of the fur trade all the way to present day women and everything in between. The women, often forgotten, were crucial to our ancestors' survival, and Kirsten is so excited to share some of their stories, their roles, and how they've paved the way for women today. So we're super excited to have Kirsten here with us today. Next slide, please. All right, a little bit of housekeeping here. This session is being recorded so that we can post it later and everyone can see. So if you're uncomfortable with that and you'd like your camera off, that's totally okay. I ask that just all mics are muted during the presentation just to ensure some good sound quality, make sure that everyone can hear it. You may show your video or turn it off as you wish, whichever one. As well, please set your chat feature to chat to everyone so that it's not a direct message to anyone in particular, so that we're being inclusive. As well, we've decided that probably the best practice for this large group is we're going to save questions just until the end. And then Kirsten would like to have a conversation. If you'd like to open up with any questions or comments, that's the space and time to do it for sure. And we welcome that. So yeah, when that time comes, using the raise your hand feature or chatting in the chat and I can read it back out to Kirsten is just fine. Whatever you're more comfortable with. And yeah, I'm excited. Let's get ourselves started here. Let's do next slide. All right, I just have a little bit of intro of myself first. My name is Megan Beaufet, and I work in the Children Family Services Department at the Métis Nation of Alberta, the Otipemisiwak Métis government. I work within the Navigating Métis Community Resources program, so we put on the community information sessions. As well, we work with family resource networks. So the Navigating Métis Community Resources program works to create connections between Métis citizens and community resources to foster culture, collaboration, and well-rounded supports to Métis families. This is a referral-based program that works closely with family resource networks across the province to connect Métis families with services in their area. If you ever need to get in contact with me for resources that are within family resource networks or within the Métis Nation of Alberta, feel free to send me an email. My email, I'll put in the chat here, is resources@métis.org. And that's there if you ever need. Next slide, please. Awesome. And now I'll hand it over to Kirsten. It's all yours, Kirsten.
Amazing. Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone, and welcome to my talk on Matriarchs of the Métis Nation. So I just wanted to start off a little bit about me. My name is Kirsten Latender. I am 7th generation Lac Saint Anne Métis and a lifelong Métis harvester. I just kind of want to start out. I don't have too many slides today. I just kind of want to talk with you guys virtually, basically just share my knowledge, have a little bit of conversation at the end if you guys have questions, and just kind of, keep it a positive, happy kind of space here. We're storytellers, it's in our blood, so that's kind of what I'm hoping to is just chat a little bit and we can all learn a little more about our Métis matriarchs. And also, I know we only have a short period of time and I could probably spend a month talking about the research and the stories I've heard and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just going to kind of highlight a few things today and yeah, hopefully set you guys up to be able to do your own research or ask more questions and just find those resources and stuff like that. It's been a lot of fun for me to go in and do this research and find a lot more and speak to so many women and hear all these stories and learn about how powerful our ancestors were. So a little bit about me. I am of proud Métis and German descent. I am Métis on my father's side and German on my mother's side. Very proud of both of those cultures. I grew up outdoors, hunting, fishing, appreciating nature. I was basically just an outside kid. And leading into that, I always wanted to do something. I wanted to get paid to do something I love. So I became an aquatic biologist. I have a Bachelor of Science from MacEwan University, majoring in biology, and I do water quality monitoring on lakes in Alberta as well as fish monitoring. And I grew up with a lot of traditional knowledge, those names, stuff like that. And I figured that, getting that Western science education and braiding those two together and getting our Indigenous traditional knowledge out there was really important. And it's a strong passion of mine. A little bit more about me. I work with the Environment and Climate Change team on their fish monitoring program during the winter. And then I also work with Children and Family Services during the Frosty Reels camps, which we're actually doing currently right now. And our last one's coming up this weekend. There we go. So I just want to start out a little bit with my first, I guess, Métis matriarch role model, my great grandmother, Mary Rose Dion. And in the picture here, you can see my great grandfather, Isidore Arthur Latender, as well. Um, I unfortunately never had the opportunity to meet either of them. They both passed before I was born, but I've learned a lot. I think they're still within me, and I've learned so much. They taught my dad a lot of things that he's now passed on to me, and so that strong matriarch in my life came. I haven't even met her, but came early on, and I believe we have those blood memories that like it's in our ancestors, and um, the knowledge that my great grandparents had has been passed through me. And I noticed actually some of it with my great grandmother. Everyone called her Sue. She was very holistic in her approach, natural remedies to heal wounds with salves and poultices and stuff like that. And it's something I've always been passionate about. So I think it's something that um, those past generations, even though we may not have met our ancestors, they still live in us, and their qualities have passed down to us. And I think it's pretty special that I have that kind of role model. And she helped raise my dad, and being raised by a strong matriarch woman, and he's now passing that down to me, which I think is an amazing gift. I come from a commercial fishing family, and my great grandmother, she never set nets. That was kind of mostly my dad and my great grandfather. But she would process fish within seconds. When those fish came back, she got her knife out, she sharpened it. From the stories I heard, obviously, and she just started cutting, and within seconds she was on to the next one. And I unfortunately don't have that same quality. It takes me a little more than a few seconds to fillet a fish, but I think it's a really powerful thing of what they used to do. Um, and kind of a way to, I want to share with you guys, my great grandparents, because it's the way we honor the generations of storytellers and the generations before us. And actually, I think it was probably a year or two ago, my dad actually told me that I like to fillet a walleye, just like how my great grandmother did. So, I think they're still always teaching us, even though they're no longer here. Um, and a little bit about my present day role models. I didn't grow up, my mother being German, I didn't grow up with a Métis matriarch, but she is an incredible woman that encouraged me to learn both my German and my Métis backgrounds. And she's, always the first one. Anytime I'm making a natural remedy, a soap, a lotion, anything like that, she's the first one to encourage me and try that. And I'm really grateful for that. That I had those powerful women in my life that encouraging me to learn more about my culture. Um, so a few things that my family taught me, and a lot of these were taught to them by Métis women historically. So how to fish and tie my own hook, how to shoot a gun and harvest wild game for sustenance. You know, I harvest avidly, and it feeds our family every year. How to process fish, the wild game we harvest, how to cook hearty meals and bake. You know, just how to be a good person in general, strong, resilient. Um, you know, my mom might not be Métis, but she is a very strong, resilient, powerful woman that I'm so lucky to have grown up with. Okay, so that's enough about me. I kind of want to teach you, starting off, not quite from the beginning, but we're going to go back quite a while and talk a little bit. First of all, what did Métis women do? This is probably one of my favorite sentences anytime I share anything about Métis women. It's Métis women were the clothing designers, the doctors, the pharmacists, the midwives, the peacekeepers, the artists, the agriculturists. They were our children's teachers and the keepers of the Métis language and the keepers of the traditional knowledge. So powerful. And, you know, it's a couple sentences that just really encompasses everything our Métis women did. So I want to start off with the fur trade. So the first women of the fur trade were Indigenous women, and it might sound like I might be talking just kind of from the slides here, and I do have a few stories to tell, but because it's online here, I just wanted you guys to be able to have all of that knowledge kind of written down here. So some of it might be reading from there, and some of it might be some stories that I'm just sharing. Just so you guys know, I did do a lot of research. I just wanted to include most of it so that you guys could visually see it, and it'd be a lot easier over this webinar. So, back in the fur trade, marriages were economically beneficial. It was so interesting to me that they would marry off an Indigenous woman to a fur trader man, and that would strengthen the trade relationships between the fur traders and the Indigenous bands or the tribes at the time. And these women then became the mothers of Métis children. And the women were so critical and so important during the fur trade. They were the guides, the peacemakers. They would give advice about furs, the trapping, and the fur trade as a whole. They also kept the men alive during the fur trade. They were really great interpreters because we had our indigenous languages as well as the fur traders when they came over. They weren't speaking the same languages. So these women were the interpreters, the liaisons, the diplomats between the indigenous men and the fur traders. And the women basically outfitted the men, both the indigenous men and the fur traders, for that time. So they would make moccasins for the men, which was the most practical footwear when they were outside in the forest harvesting and doing that work. But then in the winter, we had, you know, a lot of snow. They would make the snowshoes for the men so that they could still travel in that deep snow and harvest, whether it was food or getting to different locations, anything like that. These women also would teach the European and Euro Canadian women all the techniques and the skills to make that warm, comfortable clothing, like the capotes, and then also to prepare and preserve wild game that the men were going to be harvesting, and how to make all that, have the warm clothing for the harsh winters, but then also have that meat that would sustain us for many months, especially when it was a lot difficult when it was cold during the winter. Um, and then leading in a little bit to the buffalo hunt here, uh, the women really took over once the buffalo hunt was done. And there is research that women did also partake in the buffalo hunt. But another aspect of it is that the men and the women would work together. You know, the men would go out and bring home those raw materials from a hunt. They would bring in the bison, and then the women would get to work. You know, they would start processing. They would support the men when they went out. They would even help them with setting up camp, setting up supplies. They would even scout, and sometimes they would join on the hunt. It depended. It was very dependent on the family, the tribe, the band, whoever that was, that group of that community of people. It depended on what roles needed to be fulfilled, and if the men were capable of fulfilling that buffalo hunt, then the women would maintain the camp or set it up or move the camp, anything like that. And then, but once that meat came back, that buffalo was shot. the women got to work, and they did very labor intensive work. So they would skin and cut the meat once it was done. But every piece of one thing that I really love about our Métis ancestors is they never wasted anything. And so every part of that buffalo had a purpose and it was used. The hides were used, the tendons were used. Those tendons were collected, they were cleaned for snowshoes or ropes or dog harnesses, whatever is needed. It was a tough piece of material. You think of the tendons you have in your body, which is so fascinating to me, but also the intestines, like even their intestinal tract was cleaned and they were used for cooking containers or water bags. And it's incredible what they used to do. And I think of, if we think of present day, there I think we have a lot of waste, but it's amazing that they never let a piece of what they shot or what they harvested go to waste. And so a little bit about the hides. So the hides obviously were tanned, used as blankets, or for clothing, for moccasins, or to cover teepees, or sold for other resources, or traded, anything like that. And a long time ago, it's a fact I've known for many years. I was told that for standard teepee, it took around 13 bison hides to cover one teepee. And I don't know if anyone listening or watching today has ever had the opportunity to scrape or tan a hide, but it's very labor intensive and it takes many, many hours and it is hard on the body and a lot of hard work. And I just can't imagine like 13 hides for one teepee, and how many teepees would you have it for families, maybe if there's 5, 6, like that's a lot of bison hides, and pretty incredible what they did. So talking a little bit now about the sustenance that, the buffalo hunt, the fur trade that would provide, that the women would provide for their families. And many of you may be listening today probably know about pemmican, and it's actually what essentially kept everyone alive during that fur trade. When the new settlers came over, travelers, anyone like that, it was such a high calorie, high protein mixture that sustained our people. And it's pretty incredible that this mix had was for everyone. They made it for the fur traders so that they could keep doing their jobs for the settlers. And a little bit upon my research, I found a really interesting article about it. Was 1 pound of pemmican was equivalent to about 8 pounds of fresh meat. Like, that's incredible, and no wonder that's so much high protein and high calorie. For those of you that don't know how pemmican was made, they would cut fresh meat into long, thin strips, and that was dried. And once that meat was dried, it was then beat into flakes or powder. And then the fat or was cut up and then rendered to tallow. It was purified, and berries were dried, and then all of that was mixed together. The fat, the meat flakes or the meat powder, and the dried berries were all mixed together and stored in either those intestine bags or leather bags. And that's what sustained our people for many, many years. And that tallow actually is very powerful too. That can be rendered to use on the skin to heal wounds, anything like that, even I actually use now still today. So it's interesting that lots of these have spanned many, many generations. This was a interesting comment I found here. The women would grow gardens to provision food for the Hudson's Bay Company posts to prevent the fur traders from starving. Like I said, these women really kept the fur traders alive for so many years. Like, they wouldn't have lasted our harsh winters if it wasn't for the women giving them clothing and shoes and food and all these resources. So this quote here says, the women's contribution at Fort Edmonton in terms of gardening, as well as providing other provisions and services, was so important that the chief factor, John Rowan, noted that without the women's hard work, the company might not be able to carry on with its endeavors. At the community of St. Albert, Alberta, the harvest from fields and gardens consisted of 700 barrels of potatoes, 200 of cabbage, 11 of carrots, 11 of onions, and 150 sacks of wheat and 30 sacks of barley. That is, to me, just crazy. Like, they had such massive gardens to feed everyone. So it was a very, very great quote that I found very fitting to show just the mass amounts that they would produce for everyone. Um, Going a little further, some of the other sustenance that was provided, the women would gather. They would gather and harvest wild plants and berries for consumption or for medicines. And some of these examples are rat root, rose hips, fireweed, chaga, yarrow, seneca root, cattails, sweetgrass, wild asparagus, wild onions, turnips, mushrooms. All of these things were kept and used as a medicine when it was needed, or used daily to just eat and sustain our people and give them that good quality food. So I want to talk a little bit. This is kind of a passion of mine. You know, I come from a commercial fishing family, so this is a little near and dear to my heart. Um, but Métis women in fishing, and for the longest time, I there wasn't a lot of evidence out there that showed women would hunt or they would set nets. And recently, evidence was found that they did actually set nets and they did hunt. It was just dependent on the families and what needed to be fulfilled at the time. Um, but like I mentioned earlier, my great grandmother didn't go out and help set those nets, but she did process the fish. And if you look at the image that I have here, that top knife that looks very well loved, well used, and sharpened was actually my great grandmother's filleting knife. And the bottom knife there is what a brand new knife looks like. So as you can see, you know, she cut a lot of fish over many, many years. And that knife got a lot of love and was used heavily, which to me is very interesting. And I want to share with you guys a little bit of a story that I found when I was reading. I read many books, many articles. I've done a lot of research as this is kind of a passion of mine, but a famous story about a Métis woman named Marguerite Kirkness. She had a fight with her husband in the summer of 1810, and she left him. The Hudson's Bay Company later realized that she was the one who had been catching all the fish that her husband was supplying them with, and they begged her to return. I think that's a really funny story that you know, not everyone did, not all the women set nets, but she was the one that got all the fish, and her husband had taken the credit for it. And the Hudson's Bay Company then begged her to come back because they wanted the fish, right? So it's very interesting. But another thing that the women did with fish was they would work in canneries. For example, at Pigeon Lake, there was canneries on the lake, and those women would work in those canneries to process and prepare fish to be sold. Next, I want to talk a little bit about that generational knowledge that passed on from generation to generation, and how the young girls learnt and how that kind of worked. So the women, as I've kind of stated already, they were involved in everything: trapping, harvesting wild plants, medicines, fishing. They would actually hunt birds and small game. They would tan hides, process meat, made clothing, footwear for their families. And all while the women were doing this, they had families, and historically we had very big families. There was lots of kids, and their daughters, the women's daughters, mothers' daughters, would be working aside them this whole time. And as soon as they were able to start helping the family and do that, they would be shadowing their mothers, their grandmothers, their aunties. And most of the time, because the women always had babies, like they would be doing most of this work with a baby strapped to their back, and then their daughters, you know, right next to their side, learning how to perfect those skills and be as good as those mothers and aunties and grandmothers. And those girls, they would run the errands when the mothers couldn't, and they would take care of the younger children. But they would also learn quite early on, excuse me, they would learn to sew dolls, make moccasins, beadwork, embroidery, quill work, and they would learn all this from their mothers and their aunties and their grandmothers. And the funny thing that I was reading an article about this, and the way that they learned. And I'm sure a lot of you guys listening tonight here have a really good sense of humor and like to joke and joke, nudge each other, make fun a little bit, but all in good faith and good humor. And this is actually what the women would do. So I think this is one of those maybe blood memories that passed on generations to generation, because we're kind of a jovial people, the Métis are. So when the girls would make mistakes, the women would laugh at them. The mothers, the aunties, the grandmothers, they would all laugh at them and they'd tease them when they wouldn't do it properly or make a mistake. And it was just to kind of keep it light and not make it so stressful or like a harsh environment. And it kind of promoted their creativity and their innovation, when they would get made fun of a little bit and teased, and then once they would do it properly and stuff, they would be praised with compliments. And I think it's kind of funny because I noticed, when attending any Métis related events, like that is that atmosphere. So this has been going on for many generations already. And I just wanted to mention one more thing that they would make. I haven't mentioned it yet, but another thing that the women would make was sashes. And traditionally, sashes were identified based on a family. So you would be able to identify certain families based on the sash and the colors that were in it. And the women would make those sashes for their families. And I'm not sure, maybe you guys can see in my video here, I'm wearing a sash today, and it was made specially for me. My parents had actually got this personally made for my brother and I for Christmas, and it actually has my family on this sash, which is very interesting. My both my parents are on here, and my great grandparents and my brother and I are on this sash, kind of in the different colors, which is pretty special to me. And that is what the sashes traditionally were, was it identified families. So it's a piece near and dear to my heart. Um, and now I want to talk a little bit about our present day Métis matriarchs. So our matriarchs weren't just historical, they've spanned generations, and these matriarchs are still at the forefront of our culture, of our history and our decision making for the Métis Nation of Alberta, and now the Otipemisiwak Métis government. For over 30 years, we've had a female president, which I think is pretty incredible. And so I have here on the far left, in that photo, we have past president Audrey Patra, and then on the right in that same photo is past president Cassie Caron. So Cassie Caron was the Métis National Council president, and she was with the Minister of Youth with Métis Nation of British Columbia for 4 years, and then became the president of the Métis National Council in 2021. So she was an active member, an active powerhouse woman for the Métis people at quite a young age. And past president of the Métis Nation of Alberta, now the Otipemisiwak Métis government, Audrey Patra, she was the president for 27 years, and she was the first female to serve as president of the Métis Nation of Alberta, and she paved the way for many of our Métis women. And now, looking to that center picture, our current president, Andrea Sandmeyer, is another incredible woman that has taken her place. The work that both current president and past president have done to get the self-government, and the work they're continuing to do, and the things that they're paving the way. And it's, I think, really incredible how President Andrea Sandmeyer has carried that torch that past president Audrey Patra began to light. Excuse me. And lastly, on the far right here, now that Cassie Caron is no longer the president, we have the current president of the Métis National Council, which is Victoria Pruden, which again, we have another woman coming into this position of power and still streamlining all of that for our Métis people, which I think is really incredible. And she spent years as Métis Nation of British Columbia's director, vice president, and the president of Métis Nation of BC before becoming the president of the Métis National Council. So very cool. excuse me. Spent a lot of time talking today and I just didn't have enough water. So I've stalked a lot. I've met so many incredible women over the years. And I just wanted to share a couple pieces of advice. These two things have stuck with me for a very long time. And I think it's really important to share with you guys. And they're powerful words that I think are good for everyone to hear and to never forget kind of thing. um, so a few years ago, it was in 2019. I'd gotten really sick and was hospitalized just before the start of the school semester. And once I was home, I was planning for the semester. I was getting ready, and a few weeks into that semester, I had gotten sick again and decided, it was a difficult decision, but I decided I needed to take the semester off and let my body heal and take that time and not push myself too hard. So I had to make a phone call, and I chatted with Teresa Majorin. And if any of you are familiar with Belcourt Brasso Métis Awards, you'll know Teresa Majorin, and she's an incredible lady. And when I was on the phone with her, I think at the time we might have only met once or twice, and we didn't know each other super well. But she told me not to worry about it, about taking the semester off. And she told me that she could hear the strength in my voice. And she said, "If you never give up, you never lose." And I thought that was really powerful. And she's a Métis matriarch for our Métis people, for a lot of our Métis young Métis people. And I think it's such a powerful set of words. If you never give up, you never lose. So no matter what you're going through, no matter how hard things are, if you're never going to give up, you're never going to lose. Things might get bad and it might be tough, but if you're still trying, you're not going to lose, which is very cool. And it's something that's stuck with me for a really long time. And last year, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Elder Doreen Burgum. I was sharing a meal with her, and if any of you guys know, her gift was her feet. She's very, very good, a champion jigger, and incredible at it. If you've ever seen her dance or jig, sorry. And while I was having a meal with her, she said, "We're all born with a gift, and we need to share that with the world." And I think that's also, just another few set of words. And everyone, all of you guys listening here today, you guys are all here for a reason, but you also all have a gift. And I think it's important that you don't keep that to yourself. You share it with the world because it's something to be proud of. And Elder Doreen Bergam, her gift was her feet, and it was to jig. So she shared that with the world. And I'll be honest, I've thought for a long time about what my gift is, and I'm not 100% what it is yet. But I think, being here with all of you today and sharing my knowledge, maybe that's my gift of teaching and giving that knowledge, because I don't want to take any of this with me. I want that to be shared, and I want you guys to have the knowledge that I do, so that it'll live forever, and our Métis people know what I've learned. So those are just a couple pieces of advice from powerful, strong Métis women that I've had the pleasure of knowing. And I think they're words that can be passed on for generations as a form of power and resiliency and strength. So, like I said, I don't have too much stuff to share. It was just a little bit of touching on each thing, but I wanted to share with you guys all some resources that I've used, that I've really liked, and just some great places to learn more about our Métis women. And I have the first one on here, the La Femme Michif Otipemzwak, or the Women of the Métis Nation. And it's quite funny. I'm actually if you guys can see in the background here, I'm actually in my hotel room as I'm in Ottawa right now at La Femme Michif Otipemzwak's Spring Policy Forum. And I've had an incredible day with some incredible women. Today was our first day talking and sharing a circle, and it's actually where we had a conversation today about blood memory. And I took a bunch of notes on it, and I made a note that I had to share that with you guys all, and how important that blood memory is. And if nobody knows what blood memory is, or how I meant what I mentioned earlier was this blood memory is something that um, you listen to your intuitions. It's gathering of our Michif or Métis knowledge, and it's what's been passed through generations. It's the feeling, it's an energy. You know, maybe you get around something and you know it's safe, um, and it just feels right or it feels familiar. And that's our blood memory. And I think that is passed through our ancestors, you know. There, if you have a fear, I've thought about this. I have a few fears of spiders or something like that. That, you know, it's likely because one of my ancestors had a traumatic experience or a fear, and that's been passed through the blood memory, which I think is so powerful. So if you think in your own daily lives of things you're scared of, or things that feel comfortable, or something that's familiar even though you've never meant it before, it's probably likely because one of your ancestors experienced it, or worked it, or knew it, or something like that. So anyways, Le Femme Chif Otipimzwak is an amazing resource to learn so much about women and policies surrounding women, as well as the amount of reports they write. They're actually now doing video reports, which I think is incredible because, like I mentioned, you know, we're storytellers. Like we like to share with people and kind of have those conversations. So they're an excellent resource to learn more about specific women or anything like that, as well as the Métis Nation of Alberta, or the Otipemisiwak Métis government's website. They post a lot of resources, whether it's with the youth or on their just their general page. They post classes or kits that they'll mail out, but there's so many resources within those kits and anything like that, and it shares a lot about our people. And they're a really, really great resource to learn more, or you don't know where to look. And then I have a few books listed here that are really incredible. A few years ago, Bailey Oster and Marilyn Lise made the book called Stories of Métis Women. And it's essentially a book. Unfortunately, I don't have it on me right now to show you guys. And just composed of, honestly, just stories from various Métis women over years and generations, sharing whether it's how they harvested or the work they did, and just talking about them, which is an excellent resource. And then another one is The True Canadians by Patricia Russell and David Y. Linko. Again, another great story. And then also Braiding Sweetgrass and the Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. That book, those both of those books kind of share more about um, reciprocity with the land, as well as a lot of harvesting or origin stories, anything like that, which is very interesting to kind of learn about just our women in general within those stories. And they're depicted very well in both of these books. And another book, there's Mother Earth Plants for Health and Beauty by Carrie Armstrong. That one shares a lot about kind of those natural holistic products, those remedies, poultices, salves, stuff like that, about how we get back to that, um, the way we used to do things. You know, we used to do those natural remedies to take care of a cold, or any ailments, or sores or openings, cuts, wounds, anything like that. So it's another great reference. And again, I could have shared so many recipes or anything like that, but I think it's important to kind of give you the basis on how important our women were, but then give you resources if you're interested in something particular. These are a few that I quite enjoy. And then another resource is elders and knowledge holders. They are so knowledgeable. And you know, the last piece of advice that I just shared with you guys, it was because I was having dinner with an elder. And for the youth, a good example would be the Youth and Seniors Gathering. Is a great opportunity to speak with those elders and those knowledge keepers, and just listen to them, just be a sponge and absorb what they're saying because they're sharing our oral stories. And there's some pretty incredible stories. We had a bit of a panel today while I'm here in Ottawa, and it was three elders and a knowledge keeper, and their stories were incredible, and I just couldn't believe, what they went through, but the joy and the jokes, they were really funny, joking with each other, and their jovial attitude and stuff. So they're great resources to just go up, and they're always willing to share stories and talk to you, which is really amazing. And then another resource, some of my presentation today came from the provincial archives, and I'm not sure if Keith Grant is in this webinar this evening, but I want to give a huge thank you to him for sharing his research that he's done on Métis women, and a lot of that resources, sorry, he found in the provincial archives. He goes there and sifts through journals and reports and articles and stuff like that, and he was generous enough to share a lot of that with me, so that I could share my passion of Métis women and just showcasing how important they are. um, I know it was a lot in the past. Oh, I'm not sure how long it's been. A lot of information and stuff, so take a picture of this if you want to learn more. And um, yeah. Oh, another one I wanted to mention, there's also the Michif Cultural Connection Society, which is in St. Albert at the Juno House. And they host a lot of classes on ribbon skirts or beading or anything like that. But the people that host those classes are huge wealths of knowledge. And Sharon Warren is one of those. I've had the opportunity to meet her last year, and she has just been such an incredible person in my life, and I've got to learn so much from her. And one of the reasons I'm here in Ottawa today, which is pretty incredible. But I just kind of wanted to finish off with a couple acknowledgments. I already thank Keith for sharing his knowledge of all the Métis women research he's done, but also just thanking my family for encouraging me and supporting me with all my many passions and pursuing my dreams. But also a huge, huge thank you to the Oktitchupinzuak Métis government of the Métis Nation within Alberta for allowing me to share my knowledge on this platform with you guys today. I think these webinars that they're hosting are such a great thing for you guys all to just. It's an easy way for us to come together from all over Alberta, or even if any of you guys aren't from Alberta. I think it's such a great way to learn more and learn about our culture and our history. And I just want to thank you guys for joining today and listening to what I had to share. Uh, it feels pretty special to have so many of you guys here today listening. And I think it's really important because our Métis women, if you look in history and journals, anything like that, our women really aren't mentioned, but they are the true reason why all of us are actually here on this webinar today. Because our men wouldn't have survived. They worked together with the women, but the women kept everyone alive. They kept them warm. They kept them fed. Um, they kept them in conversations during the fur trade. So I think it's so important that we shout from the rooftops how crucial and how important they were into our why we're here today, but still how many Métis matriarchs there are present day. So thank you guys all for joining. I think that's about all I have. So I'll maybe turn it over to Megan again if any of you guys have any questions. But thank you guys so much for joining. This was so much fun. I think you guys made me a little bit nervous with so many of you here today, but I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for taking the time to be with us tonight. It was captivating the whole way through. I think that was something that, like you said, there's a reason we're all here today. And I definitely felt that with the knowledge that you were sharing, that it was something for everyone to take away. So far, the comments we have coming in are just flooding with how great your presentation was and how great your public speaking is, which I absolutely agree with that. Is there any questions that anybody has, if they'd like to raise their hand at all?
Thank you so much. Don't be shy. I'm super friendly. Please don't hesitate. I'd love to chat with you guys.
Got one here. Owner, you want to go ahead?
Hi, Kristen, it's Marie. You were absolutely amazing for such a young, talented person. You should be very proud of yourself. I just have a question more in regards to getting our hunting rights as Métis women. So I come from a long line of Latondres from Batoche, and but I now live in Edmonton. Is there something that can be provided to us, and can we get our rights, hunting rights, here in Alberta, now that we're situated here for many years?
Hi, Marie. Thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate that. You know what? That's not the best question for me. I know based off of the harvesting rights in Alberta, though, for you to get rights in Alberta, you have to have ancestry pre 1900s in Alberta. So that's like a death certificate, birth certificate, marriage certificate, anything like that, showing that your relatives lived somewhere in Alberta, and that'll give you those rights. But I think that's all I can share with you because that's not really my specialty. I don't know if Megan can speak to anything else regarding that, but I would say probably reach out to the Métis Nation of Alberta or their harvesting department, and I think they'd be able to share a lot more information. Or again, checking the Métis Nation of Alberta website would be an excellent resource. I know they have so many different tabs basically outlining all the different programs and all the different departments that would hopefully give you guys give you some more information with that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I will reach out to them.
I'm gonna put the harvesting email just in the chat there, so it's easy to contact them.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan.
No worries. Okay, that's sent off there. I see a question in the chat here. Brianna would like to know, are there any resources you can share for women interested in pursuing hunting or trapping as a career?
Oh, great question. Sorry, who said that?
Brianna.
Brianna. Okay, thank you for the question, Brianna. That is a great one. If you don't have your firearms license, if you're new to hunting, anything like that, getting your firearms course, your non-restricted firearms license, it's a course that you can take to kind of get that legal ability to be able to shoot a rifle or shotgun or anything like that. It's also a great resource to learn a little bit more. Pursuing it as a career, um, I don't know if I can give you much in terms of a career, because I harvest for sustenance, just enough to feed my family and sustain us. So in a career, um, I'm not sure if I can give you too much about that. I'm sorry if that doesn't help you answer any questions. But I think reaching out, if you're just interested in even like starting to hunt or anything like that, reaching out to people that currently hunt. I've found in talking with a lot of people or friends or family or anything like that, if they didn't come from a hunting or a harvesting or fishing family like that, it's really hard for them to actually get into. So having that relative, that friend, that family member that can actually show you the ropes and go out with you is really important. Um, but yeah.
Awesome. We also have, I'll just do one more in the chat here and then we'll move over to Ashley here. Rachel Roy would like to know, where would we go to find information about what colors would represent our families in a sash?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So my sash here, I'm not sure if you guys were able to see it earlier. So traditionally, our sashes are with the red background because that represents the lifeblood, our Métis people as a whole. Um, and I know based on provinces, different provinces kind of have different. I know being in Ottawa now, Métis Nation of British Columbia has a little bit of a different, they're a little bit darker, a little bit black kind of a background. So And I'm not sure if we, in my sash, if you guys can see here, just each line, there's different colors there which represent what's been made for our family, but they're not colors that are just specific to my family. In here, after the conversations about like who was going to be in the sash, um, my great grandmother and great grandfather were in blue and pink, and my mother and my father are in yellow and pink, and then my brother and I are both in green on here. So I don't think it's very specific, like in terms of like the latenders are pink and blue or anything like that. Traditionally, I'm not super familiar, but the Royal Alberta Museum has a really incredible Indigenous collection there. So they might have various sashes that are 100, 200 kind of years old that would actually show you maybe a little bit more on the pattern or the color and why it's related to that specific family. But that is an excellent question. And you know what? I'm really sorry if I can't answer guys' questions perfectly. I, I have this knowledge, but I'm sure that I know this much and there's probably this much out there. And I, every day, I'm still trying to learn and kind of grow those skills and be able to share more of those things.
Awesome. Thank you, Kirsten. Over to Ashley.
Yeah, thank you for this presentation. You brought up blood memory, which I am interested in. I had a question about when you experience like these moments of blood memory, would you say that the feeling is similar to like deja vu?
I think it could be, yes. I think I heard three elders and a knowledge keeper share their blood memories, and they all had different feelings. It was all a little bit different. So I think deja vu absolutely is a part of it. Maybe it's the way that you experience your blood memory, and maybe I feel like a tingle behind my neck or something. And I think I have to think a little bit more about the memories I've experienced and like what that feeling felt like. But I think that's a piece that you could be feeling, being like, hey, like I think I might have done this before, or I seen something like that, or it just feels familiar, or you feel so comfortable or something that it feels like that even though you've never been in that before. That probably is your blood memory where you're like, hey, your ancestor had that same experience. So yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, I just get like uncanny familiarity with people or situations sometimes, or like even like I have dreams and then they happen in real life after I've forgotten that I had the dream. Like it's kind of like crazy.
It could be honestly, it's a blood memory, or even your ancestors telling you something, sharing something with you. Pay attention to those, and I think they're pretty special. Not everyone gets a lot, and not everyone gets one. So when they're sharing that with you or trying to tell you something, uh, pay attention and remember it, because I think it's really important.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Awesome. Do we have any more questions as well? I just wanted to share that if anybody's ever wondering, I see some kind of questions about interest in certain things like hunting, trapping courses. If you're ever wondering what kind of courses the Otipemisiwak Métis government has, you're always welcome to send. I think the first time I put my email in here, it's sent to the waiting room. But you can always just send me an email and just ask kind of what's available, and that's something I can get you in contact with. I did see one hand raised. Was there someone who wanted to have one more question or comment? I think we're good on that. We have somebody who said, I wanted to comment that it's so accurate that we don't hear enough about our Métis grandmothers and their mothers and how they were such an intricate part of the fur trade, and they raised the future Métis generations and did an enormous part of hunting and labor during the fur trade. So true.
Oh, amazing. That's so perfectly said. It's true. Like they were so crucial. when I'm at the Frosty Reels camp, they let me speak for, 2 to 5 minutes. So I try and get everything in a short period of time. But one of the things I say is like, I think we can all agree that we would not be here today and we would not have survived if it wasn't for our Métis women. So we need to cherish them and honor them and talk about them. Like they're important.
Absolutely. And I think that's just a beautiful way to kind of round it out too, is just that acknowledgement of how hardworking those Métis women have been for us, and kind of how we all show up today too is part of our ancestors and part of those strong women. And I want to really thank everyone for being here today. I appreciate all of the time that you've taken to, oh, one moment. Okay, we're good. To come here and listen to Kirsten and share your own experiences, because that's what it's about, is coming together and being a community. So I really appreciate that. This couldn't have happened tonight with all of you being here. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Kirsten, for being here tonight.
Thanks, Megan, and thank you guys everyone for joining. This was so much fun. So thank you all. And if you ever see me at an event, come say hi, pull me over. We can geek out on water or fish or anything. I would love to chat with any of you guys.